Commander Zarath pressed her clawed fingers against the holographic display, watching the sensor readings with growing disbelief. The Galactic Council's most advanced reconnaissance ship, the Void Piercer Asterisk, had been monitoring this remote system for 3 rotations now, and the data made no sense. "Run the scans again," she ordered her tactical officer, Lieutenant Vexon. The insectoid being's compound eyes reflected the blue glow of his console as his 4 arms worked the controls with practiced efficiency. "Commander, I've run them 17 times. The results are consistent." Vexon's mandibles clicked nervously. "The 3rd planet shows signs of advanced civilization, but the electromagnetic signatures don't match any known technology in our databases." Zarath's tail lashed with frustration. As a member of the proud Kelari warrior caste, she had spent decades cataloging every known species in the galaxy. The Galactic Council maintained detailed records of all 1,247 sentient races that had achieved spaceflight. Each had their technological fingerprints, their unique energy signatures that marked their presence across the stars. But this was something entirely different. "Show me the surface scans again," she commanded. The holographic display shifted, revealing a blue and green world that seemed almost too pristine to be real. Vast oceans covered most of the surface, with continents that bore the geometric patterns of massive cities. The atmospheric composition showed optimal conditions for carbon-based life, with oxygen levels that would be toxic to most Council species. "The cities are enormous, Commander," reported Science Officer Kethmer from his station. The amphibian's throat sac pulsed as he spoke, a sign of excitement among his people. "Some of these metropolitan areas span thousands of kilometers. The population density suggests billions of inhabitants." "Billions?" Zarath's ears flattened against her skull. "What species could sustain such numbers? Even the hive collectives rarely exceed a few 100 million per world." "That's not the strangest part," Kethmer continued, his webbed fingers dancing across his controls. "The energy patterns suggest they're using some form of controlled atomic manipulation for power generation. It's incredibly primitive compared to our quantum cores, yet somehow they're achieving massive output." Zarath studied the data streams flowing across her screens. The readings showed industrial complexes that dwarfed anything in Council space, transportation networks that crisscrossed entire continents, and most puzzling of all, what appeared to be massive structures extending beyond the planet's atmosphere. "Are those space elevators?" she asked, zooming in on several thin lines connecting the surface to orbital stations. "It appears so, Commander, though the materials science required would be beyond most Level 3 civilizations. They seem to be using some form of carbon-based construction that our computers can't properly analyze." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship systems. Zarath had commanded vessels for over 20 standard years, had participated in first contact protocols with dozens of newly discovered species. But never had she encountered a civilization that didn't appear in any of the Council's extensive databases. "Could they be a lost colony?" suggested Navigation Officer Pildar, his crystalline form refracting the bridge's lighting into prismatic patterns. "Perhaps descendants of one of the extinct races from the Outer Rim Wars." "Impossible," Vexon replied immediately. "The genetic markers in their atmospheric traces don't match any known extinct species. These readings suggest a completely unique evolutionary path." Zarath felt a chill run down her spine. In all the documented history of the galaxy, every sentient species had been discovered and catalogued by the Council's exploration fleets. The idea that an entire civilization could exist without their knowledge challenged everything she had been taught about galactic order. "Commander," Kethmer's voice carried a note of urgency, "I'm detecting massive military installations across the surface, defensive networks that appear to be, well, they're pointing outward, toward space." "They know we're here." "I don't think so. These installations appear to be permanent, as if they're constantly watching for threats from above." Zarath's military training kicked in. A species that maintained permanent orbital defense networks was either paranoid beyond reason or had faced threats that justified such measures. Given that no Council records showed any military actions in this system, that left only one possibility. "They're not part of the Council," she said quietly. "They don't even know the Council exists." The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Every known civilization had either been discovered by the Council or had discovered the Council themselves upon achieving faster-than-light travel. The idea of a species developing in complete isolation was theoretically possible but practically unheard of. "What are your orders, Commander?" Vexon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zarath stared at the peaceful-looking world on her display. Standard protocol demanded immediate withdrawal and a full report to Council Command. First contact with any new species required extensive preparation, cultural analysis, and approval from the highest levels of government. But something about this discovery felt different. The massive cities, the defensive networks, the sheer scale of their civilization suggested a species that might not respond well to the Council's traditional approach of overwhelming technological superiority. "Begin long-range observation protocols," she ordered finally. "Full passive scans only. I want to know everything about these people before we make any decisions about contact." "Commander," Kethmer interrupted, his throat sac pulsing rapidly. "You need to see this." The display shifted to show the dark side of the planet, where the night cities glowed with billions of lights. But that wasn't what caught Zarath's attention. Above the planet, barely visible against the star field, dozens of artificial structures orbited in perfect formation. "Space stations?" she asked. "That's what I thought initially, but look at this." Kethmer enhanced the image, revealing sleek, angular shapes that bore no resemblance to any known station design. "They're not stations, Commander. They're ships, hundreds of them all in defensive positions around the planet." Zarath felt her blood run cold. The vessels were enormous, easily matching the size of Council dreadnoughts. But their design was unlike anything in the galactic databases, where Council ships favored flowing, organic curves that reflected their builders' natural forms. These were all harsh angles and geometric precision. "Can we analyze their weapon systems?" "I'm detecting massive energy conduits running throughout each vessel, but the technology is—" Kethmer paused, his throat sac deflating with confusion. "Commander, I can't identify a single component. It's as if they developed along a completely different technological path than any known species." "Power levels." Conservative estimates suggest each ship carries enough firepower to level a small moon. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The Council maintained peace through technological superiority. Their quantum-powered vessels could outgun any known civilization by orders of magnitude. But if these readings were accurate, this unknown species possessed military capabilities that could challenge even the most advanced Council fleets. "Begin recording everything," Zarath ordered. "Full spectrum analysis on all their technologies. Command will want detailed reports on every aspect of their civilization." As the hours passed, more impossible data flowed across their screens. The unknown species had apparently mastered technologies that Council scientists considered impractical or impossible. They used crude chemical rockets to reach orbit, yet somehow achieved thrust-to-weight ratios that shouldn't be possible with such primitive systems. Their computer networks operated on electrical impulses rather than quantum entanglement, yet processed information at speeds that rivaled Council systems. Most disturbing of all were the biological scans. The beings themselves appeared to be relatively small, bipedal creatures with no obvious natural weapons. No claws, no armored hide, no venom sacs or defensive spines. By Council standards, they should have been easy prey for any predator species. Yet somehow, these physically unremarkable beings had built a civilization that spanned their entire world and showed signs of expanding into space. "Commander," Vexon called out, his voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting movement in their fleet, multiple vessels changing orbital positions." The display updated to show several of the massive ships adjusting their formations, moving with a coordination that suggested advanced tactical planning. As Zarath watched, the vessels arranged themselves into what she recognized as a classic defensive screen pattern. "They know something's wrong," she muttered. "Can they detect us?" "Impossible, Commander. We're running full stealth protocols. Our quantum shield should make us invisible to any scanning technology." But as she watched the alien fleet maneuver, Zarath felt a growing certainty that they had somehow been discovered. The ship movements were too precise, too purposeful to be coincidental. "Get us out of here," she ordered. "Emergency jump to the outer system, maximum stealth protocols." As the Asterisk Void Piercer, engaged its faster-than-light drive, Zareth took one last look at the mysterious world and its impossible inhabitants. In her decades of service, she had encountered countless alien species, each stranger than the last, but none had ever made her feel the peculiar mixture of fascination and unease that gripped her now. These beings, whatever they were, represented something new in galactic history, a species that had developed in complete isolation, free from council influence or knowledge. Their very existence challenged fundamental assumptions about how civilizations developed and spread across the stars. And if their military capabilities matched their technological achievements, they might represent something far more significant than a mere first contact scenario. They might represent the first genuine challenge to council supremacy in over 1,000 years. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's existence toward the heart of the galaxy, Zareth began composing her report to Council Command. But she found herself struggling with how to explain what she had witnessed. How do you tell the most powerful organization in the galaxy that everything they thought they knew about the universe might be wrong? How do you explain that somewhere in the outer rim, a species of apparently harmless bipeds had built an empire that could threaten the established order of the stars? And most importantly, how do you warn them that these beings called themselves humans, and that they were preparing for a war that the Council didn't even know was coming? High Counselor Vorthak read the report for the third time, his massive frame shifting uncomfortably in his ceremonial chair. Around the circular chamber of the Inner Council, representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species sat in stunned silence. The crystalline walls of the Council headquarters on Nexus Prime seemed to dim in response to the collective mood. "This cannot be accurate," declared Counselor Mexali, her chitinous exoskeleton clicking with agitation. As the primary representative of the Hive collectives, she controlled the largest manufacturing base in the galaxy. "A complete civilization existing without our knowledge. Impossible." "And yet the evidence is irrefutable," replied Science Counselor Yathara, her tentacles weaving complex patterns as she manipulated the holographic data. "Commander Zareth's ship recorded over 600 hours of detailed scans. Every reading has been verified by our best analysts." Vorthak's 4 eyes focused on the central display showing humanity's home world. As a member of the ancient Titan race, he had witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. His people had been among the founders of the Galactic Council over 800 years ago, establishing the principles that kept peace among the stars. "Show me the military analysis again," he rumbled, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. The display shifted to show detailed breakdowns of humanity's defensive capabilities. The numbers were staggering. Orbital platforms that could project energy beams across multiple light minutes. Underground bunker complexes that could survive direct bombardment from capital ships. A fleet of vessels that, while primitive by Council standards, outnumbered their entire military by a factor of nearly 10 to 1. "They call them humans," Yathara continued, her translator rendering the alien word with clinical precision. "Bipedal carbon-based life forms, average height 1.7 meters, no obvious natural weapons or defenses. By every biological metric, they should be a prey species." "Yet they dominate their entire world," Counselor Zurith observed. The reptilian warrior's scales rippled with colors that indicated deep thought among his people. "And they've done so using technology we don't fully understand." Vorthak studied the biological data more carefully. In his experience, physical weakness often led to technological innovation, but the scale of human achievement seemed far beyond what their limitations should have produced. "What about their history?" he asked. "Have we been able to determine how they achieved such rapid development?" "That's where it becomes truly disturbing," Yathara replied, her tentacles forming what humans might have recognized as worried wringing of hands. "Based on atmospheric analysis and archaeological scans, they achieved industrial capability less than 300 standard years ago. They've progressed from primitive combustion engines to interplanetary travel in a time frame that should be impossible." 300 years, Counselor Mexali's mandibles spread in disbelief. "The Kelari took nearly 2,000 years to develop similar capabilities, and they're considered one of the fastest advancing species in Council history." "The timeline gets worse," Yathara continued. "Evidence suggests they achieved nuclear capability and space flight within a single century. Most remarkably, they appear to have developed these technologies independently across multiple geographical regions of their planet. Vorthak felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature control. In all of galactic history, technological development followed predictable patterns. Species developed slowly, often with guidance from more advanced civilizations. The idea of a species achieving such rapid advancement in isolation challenged everything the Council understood about civilization development. "What about their social structures?" asked Councillor Wendar. The crystalline beings form refracting light as he spoke. "Surely such rapid development must have created instability." "Quite the opposite," Yathara replied, manipulating the display to show global communication networks that span the entire planet. "They maintain hundreds of separate political entities, yet coordinate on a level that would challenge even our most advanced collective species. Their global information network allows near-instantaneous communication anywhere on their world." "Multiple political entities," Zurith's scales flashed with alarm colors. "How do they avoid constant warfare?" "They don't," Yathara said quietly. "Analysis of their electromagnetic emissions suggests they've been in various states of conflict for their entire recorded history. Yet somehow, they continue to advance technologically even during active warfare." The council chamber fell silent. The very concept was alien to most of the assembled beings. The council maintained peace through careful mediation and the threat of overwhelming force. The idea of a species that could wage war and advance technologically simultaneously was deeply unsettling. "Perhaps that explains their military capabilities," Vorthak mused. "A species that has never known true peace would naturally develop superior defensive technologies." "There's more," Yathara continued, her tone growing darker. "Deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures in systems near human space. We believe they've already begun expanding beyond their home world." The implications hit the assembled counselors like a physical blow. An unknown species with superior numbers and unclear technological capabilities was already spreading into space, potentially threatening established shipping lanes and council territories. "Recommendations?" Vorthak asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Military Counselor Daxon stood from his position, his cybernetic implants gleaming in the chamber's light. As commander of the Council's combined fleets, he had maintained peace for over a century through careful displays of overwhelming force. "Standard containment protocols," he announced, his artificially enhanced voice cutting through the chamber. "Deploy the Third Fleet to establish a perimeter around human space. Begin systematic scanning of all adjacent systems for signs of expansion. If these humans prove hostile, we crush them before they can threaten Council space." "You suggest war?" Vorthak's voice carried a note of warning. The Council had not engaged in large-scale military action for over 2 centuries, preferring diplomatic solutions backed by technological superiority. "I suggest caution," Daxon replied. "An unknown species with apparent military capabilities exceeding our models represents a clear threat to galactic stability. We must establish control before they become too powerful to contain." Councillor Pethara, the elderly representative of the philosophical seers, raised her crystalline hand for attention. Her species rarely spoke during council sessions, preferring to observe and analyze, which made her words carry additional weight. "Has anyone considered the possibility," she said in her whispering voice that somehow carried clearly through the chamber, "that these humans represent something we have never encountered before?" "In what sense?" Vorthak asked. "Consider their development pattern. Rapid technological advancement despite physical limitations. Military capability that exceeds their apparent biological potential. Multiple competing civilizations that somehow coordinate global defense. These characteristics suggest a level of adaptability that surpasses any known species." Pethara manipulated the display, highlighting human population centers that had developed in environments ranging from frozen polar regions to scorching deserts. "Look at their distribution patterns. They have established permanent settlements in every biome on their planet, including regions that should be uninhabitable for their species. They've adapted to environments that would challenge even our most versatile explorers." "Adaptation is common among successful species," Councillor Mexali observed. "Not to this degree," Pethara replied. Most species are limited by their evolutionary origins. Aquatic species remain in aquatic environments, desert species prefer arid climates, and so forth. Humans appear to have transcended their biological limitations through technology and social cooperation. You're suggesting they're more dangerous than our analysis indicates? Zurith asked. I'm suggesting they're different in ways we don't yet understand. Observe their apparent learning curve. 3 centuries from primitive industry to space travel. What will they achieve in the next 3 centuries, or the next 3 decades? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every species in the Council had required millennia to achieve their current technological levels, with most receiving guidance from more advanced civilizations. The idea of a species that could accelerate development through pure innovation was terrifying. The biological scans show they're not particularly intelligent compared to Council norms, Yathara pointed out. Their brain-to-body ratios are within standard parameters for tool-using species. Individual intelligence, yes, Pethara agreed. But consider their social structures again. They maintain global communication networks that allow them to share knowledge instantaneously across their entire species. In effect, they operate as a collective intelligence while maintaining individual autonomy. Vorthak studied the data again, looking for patterns he might have missed. The more he learned about humans, the more unsettled he became. Every assumption about how civilizations developed seemed wrong when applied to this species. What do we know about their expansion goals? He asked. Limited information suggests they're systematically exploring every system within 50 light-years of their home world, Daxon replied. Their ships appear to use some form of crude, faster-than-light drive, but they're covering territory at an impressive rate. 50 light-years? Vorthak calculated quickly. That would put them within range of the Kepler trade routes within a decade. Exactly, Daxon said grimly. If they maintain their current expansion rate, contact with Council shipping is inevitable. We need to establish our position before that happens. What kind of contact scenarios are we considering? Councillor Wendar asked. Standard first contact protocols obviously won't apply, Yathara replied. They've achieved interstellar travel independently, which places them automatically in the Category 5 contact classification. But their military capabilities suggest they might not respond favorably to our usual demonstrations of technological superiority. Vorthak nodded slowly. Category 5 contacts were rare and dangerous. Species that achieved interstellar travel independently usually possessed the confidence and capability to challenge Council authority. Most required delicate negotiation to integrate into galactic civilization. But humans appeared to exceed even Category 5 parameters. Their rapid development and apparent military focus suggested they might view the Council not as potential allies or overlords, but as competitors. We need more information, he decided. I'm authorizing a full intelligence gathering mission, deep cover observation, technological analysis, and cultural assessment. I want to know everything about these humans before we make any contact decisions. How long do you estimate such a mission would require? Daxon asked. Standard protocols suggest 6 months for basic assessment, up to 2 years for comprehensive cultural analysis, Yathara replied. Too long, Vorthak said firmly. If their expansion continues at current rates, we'll have direct contact within months whether we're prepared or not. I want preliminary reports within 30 standard days. That's barely enough time for basic technological assessment, Yathara protested. Then focus on what matters most. I need to know 3 things. Are they hostile? Can we defeat them if necessary? And most importantly, what do they want? As the Council session continued into the night cycle, Vorthak found himself staring at the image of humanity's home world. Something about the blue and green planet disturbed him on a level he couldn't quite identify. Perhaps it was the orbital defense networks that suggested a species constantly preparing for war. Perhaps it was the massive cities that implied a population density that should have been unsustainable. Or perhaps it was the nagging suspicion that humanity represented something entirely new in galactic history. A species that had developed not just independently, but along completely different evolutionary paths than any known civilization. And if the humans were truly as adaptable and innovative as the data suggested, the next few months might determine not just the fate of first contact, but the future balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable Asterisk, humanity's most advanced battleship, watching the sensor displays with growing concern. 3 weeks ago, long-range monitoring stations had detected artificial gravity signatures moving through the outer reaches of the Sol system. The signatures didn't match any known human technology. "Status report," she called to her tactical officer. "Ma'am, we're tracking 17 distinct contacts maintaining position approximately 40 AU from the sun. They're not broadcasting any identification signals, and they're not responding to our hails." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. At 62 years old, she had commanded vessels during the Mars colonial wars and the asteroid belt conflicts. She had seen humanity's enemies before, and they had always been other humans. The prospect of encountering truly alien intelligence filled her with a mixture of excitement and dread. "Analysis of their technology." "That's where it gets interesting, Admiral," replied Dr. Marcus Webb, the ship's science officer. "Their energy signatures suggest some form of exotic matter manipulation, possibly quantum-based. The power outputs are, well, they're beyond anything we've achieved." "How far beyond?" "Conservative estimates suggest each of their ships carries enough firepower to sterilize a continent." Admiral Chen felt her stomach tighten. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare, but they had always fought with limited resources against enemies with similar technological limitations. If these aliens possessed the kind of superiority the readings suggested, Earth might be facing an extinction-level threat. "Any indication of hostile intent?" "Unknown, ma'am. They're maintaining what appears to be an observation formation. No active targeting systems that we can detect, but then again, we might not be able to detect their targeting systems at all." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's fusion reactors. Around them, the combined might of humanity's space fleet maintained defensive positions throughout the system. 200 ships, representing the pinnacle of human engineering and military capability, all potentially obsolete in the face of technology they couldn't even understand. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Lieutenant Torres, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." The display showed President Martinez in the Situation Room beneath Geneva. Behind her, Admiral Chen could see the familiar faces of the Global Defense Council, the men and women who had guided humanity through its expansion into space. "Admiral Chen," the President began, "what's your assessment of the situation?" "Madam President, we're dealing with technology that's centuries ahead of ours, possibly millennia. If these aliens have hostile intentions, our current defensive capabilities may be insufficient." "Recommendations." Admiral Chen looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These were the best of the best, soldiers and scientists who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. If anyone could find a way to defend Earth against impossible odds, it would be people like them. "We continue trying to establish communication while maintaining defensive readiness. If they wanted to destroy us, they could probably have done so already. The fact that they're observing suggests they might be open to dialogue." "And if dialogue fails?" Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Then we do what humans have always done when faced with extinction, ma'am. We fight." After the transmission ended, Admiral Chen returned to studying the sensor data. The alien ships remained motionless, their exotic energy signatures pulsing with what almost seemed like patience. Whatever they were waiting for, she hoped it would give humanity time to prepare for whatever came next. "Admiral," Dr. Webb called out, excitement clear in his voice, "I'm detecting new energy patterns from the alien fleet. It looks like they're powering up some kind of communication array." "Finally," Admiral Chen muttered, "all stations prepare to receive alien communication, record everything." The main display flickered, static running across the surface as unknown frequencies interfaced with human technology. Slowly, an image began to resolve, showing what appeared to be the bridge of an alien vessel. The being that appeared on screen was unlike anything in human imagination. Tall and reptilian, with scales that shifted color as it moved, 4 arms that ended in clawed fingers, and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. When it spoke, its words were accompanied by a musical translation that somehow conveyed meaning directly to the human mind. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am Commander Zarath of the Galactic Council vessel Void Piercer Asterisk. We come seeking dialogue with your species. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her military bearing evident even on an alien bridge. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Federation. We welcome peaceful contact with your people. Admiral Chen, Zarath replied, her translator making the human name sound almost musical. We represent the Galactic Council, a coalition of 1,247 sentient species that maintains peace and order throughout this galaxy. We have been monitoring your world and are impressed by what we have observed. Monitoring us for how long? Several rotations of your world around its star. We became aware of your existence when our deep space sensors detected your electromagnetic emissions. Your rapid technological development has been unexpected. Admiral Chen felt a chill. The aliens had been watching humanity for years without revealing themselves, studying human civilization like researchers observing laboratory subjects. What do you want from us? She asked directly. Zarath's expression shifted in what might have been surprise. Direct communication. Interesting. Most species require extensive preliminary contact protocols. You appear comfortable with immediate dialogue. We're a direct species, Commander. If you have something to say, we'd prefer you say it clearly. Very well. The Galactic Council wishes to extend an invitation for humanity to join our organization. Your species shows remarkable potential, and we believe you could contribute significantly to galactic civilization. Admiral Chen studied the alien commander's face, looking for any hint of deception. In her experience, offers that sounded too good to be true usually were. What would joining your council involve? Integration into galactic society, access to advanced technologies, medical treatments that could extend your natural lifespans by centuries, and knowledge of the wider universe. In exchange, you would contribute your unique perspectives and capabilities to the common good. And if we refuse? Zarath's pause was slight, but Admiral Chen noticed it. The Council respects the autonomy of all sentient species. However, unauthorized expansion into established trade routes could create complications. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Join the Council voluntarily or face the consequences of challenging established galactic order. Admiral Chen had heard similar ultimatums before, usually from human warlords who controlled strategic resources. The language was more polite, but the meaning was identical. I see. And what makes you think humanity would be interested in joining your organization? Your species faces significant challenges, Zarath replied. Limited resources, environmental degradation, social conflicts that drain your development potential. Council membership would solve these problems and allow you to reach your full potential. Admiral Chen almost smiled. The alien commander was clearly intelligent and well-informed, but she had made a crucial error. She assumed that humanity viewed its challenges as problems to be solved by others, rather than obstacles to be overcome through determination and ingenuity. Commander Zarath, I appreciate your offer, but humanity will need time to consider such a significant decision. This is the first contact our species has had with galactic civilization. We'll need to consult with our governments and people. Of course, how much time do you require? I would estimate several months for proper consideration. Zarath's expression shifted again, this time clearly showing surprise. Months? Admiral Chen, most species provide immediate responses to Council invitations. The benefits are self-evident. Perhaps they are to species that lack alternatives. Humanity has always preferred to make its own way. We'll need to understand exactly what we're agreeing to before we make any commitments. The alien commander's scales rippled with colors that probably indicated emotion among her people. Admiral, I hope you understand the significance of this offer. Council membership has been extended to your species despite your relatively primitive technological level. This is an extraordinary opportunity. Primitive? Admiral Chen's voice carried a hint of ice. Commander, humanity may not possess your level of technology, but we've achieved everything we have through our own efforts. That's something we take considerable pride in. I meant no offense, Zarath said quickly. Your species has indeed accomplished much with limited resources. However, you must understand that the galaxy contains threats that individual worlds cannot face alone. Council membership provides protection as well as advancement. What kind of threats? Rogue artificial intelligences, aggressive species that reject civilized contact, cosmic phenomena that can destroy entire systems. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for isolated worlds. Admiral Chen nodded thoughtfully. The warning sounded genuine, and the idea of cosmic-scale threats was sobering. But something in Zarath's manner suggested there was more to the story than she was revealing. Commander, I have to ask, in your observation of humanity, what did you find most surprising? Zarath's hesitation was longer this time. Your adaptability. Most species develop within specific environmental and social parameters. Humans appear to have transcended such limitations through cooperation and innovation. Is that unusual? Extremely. Most species require centuries to adapt to new challenges. Your people seem to thrive on them. Admiral Chen felt a spark of pride. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles through determination and creativity. If that quality was truly rare in the galaxy, it might represent something valuable that humans could bring to galactic civilization. Commander, would it be possible to arrange a more formal meeting? Perhaps representatives from both our peoples could discuss the details of council membership in person. That would be acceptable. Where would you suggest? Neutral ground, perhaps one of the outer planets in our system. We could establish a temporary station for negotiations. Agreed. However, Admiral, I must warn you that the Council's patience is not unlimited. Other species have learned that isolation becomes increasingly difficult as galactic civilization expands. After the transmission ended, Admiral Chen turned to her senior staff. Analysis. They're clearly more advanced than us technologically, Dr. Webb said immediately. But their approach suggests they're not accustomed to dealing with species that don't immediately accept their authority. They seemed surprised by our request for time to consider, added Lieutenant Torres, like they expected immediate compliance. Or immediate submission, Admiral Chen corrected. Dr. Webb, what's your assessment of their military capabilities? Based on their energy signatures, they could probably defeat our entire fleet without significant effort. But there's something interesting about their ship designs. They appear to prioritize stealth and sensor capabilities over raw firepower. That suggests they're more used to observation and intimidation than actual combat. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. They're explorers and diplomats, not warriors. That might give us some advantages if negotiations go badly. Admiral, called her tactical officer, we're detecting more ships entering the system. Alien configurations, but different from the first group. The display updated to show massive vessels emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Where Zarath's ship had been sleek and organic, these new arrivals were geometric and aggressive, bristling with weapon emplacements that even human sensors could recognize. It looks like the Council's backup plan, Admiral Chen said grimly. Dr. Webb, get me a full analysis of those new ships. Lieutenant Torres, open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them it's time to implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7. The plan humanity hoped they would never need. Total mobilization for species survival, calling on every resource and every sacrifice necessary to preserve human independence. As she watched the alien fleet position itself around Earth's system, Admiral Chen realized that first contact was about to become humanity's greatest test. Not just of their military capabilities, but of everything that made them human. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that had never learned how to surrender. The attack began at 3:47 hours, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the asterisk Indomitable as space erupted in violence around Earth. The Council fleet had waited exactly 72 hours after humanity's formal rejection of their ultimatum before opening fire. Their opening salvo vaporized 3 orbital defense platforms and sent debris raining down through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. All units engage at will, Chen commanded into her communications array. This is not a drill. Humanity is at war. The response was immediate. Across the Sol system, human vessels that had been quietly positioning themselves for 3 days suddenly revealed their true numbers. What the Council had assumed was a modest defensive fleet of 200 ships suddenly became over 800 as vessels emerged from asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and the shadows of moons where they had been hiding. Admiral, enemy flagship is targeting our position, called Tactical Officer Reynolds, his voice steady despite the impossible odds they faced. Multiple energy signatures suggest they're charging some kind of directed energy weapon. Evasive maneuvers, return fire with everything we have. The Asterisk Indomitable shuddered as its massive railguns opened fire, sending tungsten projectiles across space at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic round struck the Council flagship's shields and simply stopped. The alien vessel's defensive systems absorbed the impact with barely a flicker. In return, the Council ship fired what appeared to be a beam of pure energy. The blast caught a human destroyer, the Yorktown, amidships. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across space as if it had never been. "Jesus," whispered Navigation Officer Park. "How do we fight that?" Admiral Chen gritted her teeth. The technology gap was even worse than their worst-case scenarios had predicted. But humanity hadn't survived this long by giving up when faced with impossible odds. Reynolds, target their smaller ships. Concentrate fire on anything that looks like a support vessel. Park, get us into the asteroid belt. We need cover. As the Asterisk Indomitable raced toward the relative safety of the asteroid field, Chen watched her tactical display update with incoming damage reports. In the first 10 minutes of combat, humanity had lost 37 ships. In return, they had managed to damage exactly 0 enemy vessels. But something interesting was happening. The Council ships, for all their technological superiority, were maneuvering like vessels designed for intimidation rather than actual combat. Their formations were impressive but rigid, their targeting systems precise but slow to adapt to rapidly changing tactical situations. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Torres, excitement breaking through her professional composure. "I'm receiving a transmission from the Asterisk Washington Asterisk. Captain Martinez reports successful strike on enemy support vessel." Chen's attention snapped to her display. The heavy cruiser Asterisk Washington had somehow managed to get close enough to one of the smaller Council ships to fire its experimental plasma torpedoes at point-blank range. The enemy vessel's shields had held, but the explosions had clearly damaged its external equipment. How did they penetrate the enemy's defenses? "Unknown, Admiral. Captain Martinez requests permission to attempt similar maneuvers with other enemy vessels." "Granted, transmit his attack pattern to all units." As the battle continued, a picture began to emerge. The Council ships were individually superior to anything humanity could field, but they fought like a police force rather than a military. Their tactics assumed immediate surrender after a show of overwhelming force. They weren't prepared for an enemy that would continue fighting despite massive casualties. More importantly, their technology appeared to have weaknesses. The exotic energy shields that made them nearly invulnerable could be overloaded by sustained bombardment from multiple angles. Their weapons, while devastatingly powerful, had charge times that created brief windows of vulnerability. Admiral Torres called out, "Incoming transmission from Earth Command." President Martinez appeared on screen, her command center clearly shaking from nearby orbital bombardments. Behind her, Chen could see military advisors coordinating global defense efforts. "Admiral, what's your status?" "We're holding them off for now, Madam President, but we can't sustain these losses indefinitely. We need to change the tactical situation." "Understood. Admiral, I'm authorizing the release of classified weapons systems, everything we've been developing in the Black Budget programs. It's time to show these aliens what human ingenuity can accomplish when we're fighting for survival." The transmission ended, and Chen felt a grim satisfaction. Humanity's military-industrial complex had been preparing for interstellar war since the first deep space signals had been detected. If the Council thought they were fighting primitive chemical rockets and nuclear warheads, they were about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. "Reynolds, patch me through to all ships, fleet-wide communication." "Channel open, Admiral." "This is Admiral Chen to all human vessels. Today, we face an enemy that believes us to be primitive and weak. They think our technology is centuries behind theirs. They think we'll surrender when faced with their superior firepower." Her voice carried across space to every human ship in the system. "They're about to learn that they've never faced anything like humanity before." As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships that definitely weren't in any official fleet registry, vessels with configurations that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. The secret weapons programs that had consumed massive portions of Earth's military budget for the past decade were finally being revealed. The first new arrival was designated Prometheus Asterisk, a vessel that looked more like a flying weapons platform than a traditional ship. Its entire structure was built around a single massive weapon system that Earth's physicists had been told was impossible to create. "Admiral," Reynolds called out, all clear in his voice, "the Prometheus is charging what appears to be some kind of antimatter cannon." "Dear God," Chen whispered, "they actually built one." The Prometheus fired, and space itself seemed to tear apart. The antimatter beam struck the Council flagship's shields, and for the first time in the battle, actually damaged them. The alien vessel's defensive systems flickered and sparked as exotic matter met exotic matter in a collision that released more energy than some stars. The response was immediate. Every Council ship in the system turned toward the Prometheus Asterisk, recognizing it as a genuine threat. But before they could coordinate their attack, more impossible vessels emerged from hiding. The Nemesis was a stealth ship that somehow remained invisible even while firing, its weapons appearing to materialize from empty space to strike enemy vessels. The Titan was a massive fortress ship that deployed swarms of automated combat drones, each one guided by artificial intelligence that had been trained on every recorded human conflict in history. But perhaps most disturbing to the Council forces was the Cerberus Asterisk, a ship that appeared to be experimenting with artificial gravity manipulation. Its weapons didn't fire projectiles or energy beams. They created localized gravitational anomalies that crushed enemy vessels from the inside out. "Admiral," Tors reported, her voice barely containing her excitement, "we're receiving tactical data from the experimental ships. They're sharing their sensor readings and targeting information with the entire fleet." Suddenly, every human ship in the system had access to advanced targeting data and tactical analysis that their own sensors couldn't provide. The technological disparity that had seemed insurmountable minutes earlier was rapidly narrowing. "All ships coordinate fire on enemy vessels showing shield damage," Chen commanded. "Focus on anything the experimental ships have already engaged." The tide of battle began to turn. The Council ships, designed to intimidate primitive species into submission, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to generate new technologies in real time. Every time they adapted to one human tactic, another impossible weapons system would emerge from nowhere. Commander Zareth, watching the battle from her flagship, felt a growing sense of disbelief. In her decades of military service, she had never seen such rapid tactical adaptation. The humans were literally learning to fight Council technology while the battle was happening. "Commander," her tactical officer reported, his voice tight with fear, "we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. They appear to be charging weapons we've never seen before." "How is that possible? Our intelligence indicated they possessed only primitive kinetic and fusion weapons." "Unknown, Commander. But energy readings suggest they've been developing advanced weapons systems in complete secrecy." Zareth studied her tactical display with growing alarm. The human fleet had somehow doubled in size during the battle, with vessels appearing that hadn't shown up on any previous scans. More disturbing, their weapon signatures were becoming increasingly exotic, suggesting technologies that Council science had declared impossible. "Signal the Council fleet. General, retreat to the outer system. We need time to reassess the tactical situation." As the Council ships began their withdrawal, Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had survived the first engagement with galactic civilization, and they had done it through the same qualities that had carried them from caves to starships: ingenuity, adaptability, and the absolute refusal to surrender when faced with extinction. "Status report," she called to her bridge crew. "Enemy fleet withdrawing beyond the orbit of Neptune," Reynolds reported. "Human casualties are significant but manageable. More importantly, we've demonstrated that Council technology isn't invincible." "Damage assessment on enemy forces. At least 12 ships showing significant damage, 3 completely destroyed. Admiral, we actually hurt them." Chen nodded grimly. The battle had cost humanity nearly 100 ships and thousands of lives, but it had accomplished something more valuable than any tactical victory. It had proven that humans could fight galactic civilization and win. Tours open a channel to the Council flagship. Commander Zarath's image appeared on screen, her reptilian features showing emotions that Chen couldn't interpret, but that clearly indicated shock and confusion. "Commander," Chen said formally, "I believe your assessment of human technological capabilities may have been incomplete." "Admiral Chen," Zarath replied, her translator struggling with what might have been respect or fear, "your species has proven more resourceful than our intelligence indicated. We're a creative people when properly motivated. I trust you'll convey to your council that humanity is prepared to continue this engagement for as long as necessary to preserve our independence." "Admiral, surely you realize that this system contains only a small fraction of Council military forces. We can bring ships numbering in the thousands." "And we can bring weapons you haven't imagined yet," Chen replied coldly. "Commander, humanity spent its entire history fighting impossible odds. We developed our entire civilization through conflict and competition. War isn't something we do when diplomacy fails. War is something we excel at." As the transmission ended, Admiral Chen looked out at the stars beyond Earth's system, knowing that humanity had just announced its presence to galactic civilization in the most dramatic way possible. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Galactic Council was about to learn that they had awakened something that should have remained sleeping. A species that didn't just fight for survival, but that became more dangerous the more desperate their situation became. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you threatened a species whose greatest innovations had always come from their darkest hours. 6 months after the first battle at Earth, the war had spread across 17 star systems, and the Galactic Council was beginning to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation. High Counselor Vorthak stood in the Council's war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the deteriorating military situation across the galaxy. Red markers indicated human fleet positions, and there were far too many of them for a species that had supposedly been contained to their home system. "Explain to me again how a pre-stellar civilization has managed to establish a presence in 8 systems simultaneously," he rumbled, his massive frame trembling with suppressed rage. Military Counselor Daxon's cybernetic implants flickered as he processed the latest intelligence reports. "High Counselor, human expansion appears to utilize technologies we don't fully understand. They've somehow achieved faster-than-light travel capabilities that exceed our own, and their ships are appearing in systems we considered impossible to reach." "Impossible?" "Human vessels have been detected in the Veil Nebula, which our own ships cannot navigate due to exotic matter interference. They've established mining operations in the Maelstrom cluster, where gravitational anomalies should prevent any known form of space travel. Most concerning, they've built forward bases in systems we hadn't even discovered yet." Vorthak studied the strategic display with growing alarm. The human expansion pattern made no sense according to any known model of civilization development. Where most species spread slowly from system to system along established trade routes, humans seem to leap randomly across space, establishing footholds in the most unexpected locations. "What about their military capabilities? Surely our technological superiority provides some advantage." "That's complicated," Daxon admitted reluctantly. "Human technology appears to advance in real time during combat. We've encountered weapon systems that didn't exist in previous engagements, sometimes appearing on the same ships we've fought before." "Elaborate." Science Counselor Yathara manipulated the display to show combat footage from the recent engagement at Kepler 442. "This is the human vessel Asterisk Defiance during last month's battle. Notice the conventional railgun armaments and fusion missile systems. Now observe the same ship during yesterday's engagement at Wolf 359. The second video showed what appeared to be the same vessel, but now bristling with weapon systems that defied classification. Energy cannons that fired coherent gravity waves, defensive shields that seemed to absorb incoming attacks and redirect them back at their sources, and most disturbing of all, what appeared to be localized reality distortion fields that made portions of the ship exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "How is such rapid technological development possible?" Vorthak demanded. "We believe humans have developed what they call combat evolution, Yathara explained. Their ships contain manufacturing facilities that can apparently design, test, and implement new technologies during active combat. They're literally inventing new forms of warfare while fighting. The implications were staggering. In all of galactic history, no species had ever achieved such rapid technological advancement. The Council's superiority had always rested on their accumulated knowledge and sophisticated manufacturing capabilities developed over millennia. The idea of a species that could match that development in months rather than centuries challenged everything they understood about technological progress. Status of our own forces. Daxon's expression darkened. We've lost over 400 ships across all theaters. Human casualties are proportionally much lower, and their replacement rate appears to exceed our own despite their smaller industrial base. Explain. Human shipyards are unique. Where we build vessels using standardized designs refined over centuries, they appear to customize each ship for specific mission parameters. More importantly, they've somehow automated the construction process to a degree we thought impossible. They can build a capital ship in the time it takes us to manufacture a fighter craft. Vorthak felt a chill that penetrated even his thick hide. The Council maintained galactic peace through careful control of advanced technology and manufacturing capabilities. If humans could outproduce established civilizations while simultaneously out-innovating them, the fundamental balance of galactic power was at stake. What are their apparent strategic objectives? Unknown, Daxon replied. Their expansion pattern suggests they're securing resource-rich systems and strategic positions, but they haven't attempted to engage in traditional conquest. They seem more interested in establishing defensive positions and denying us access to key systems. Almost like they're preparing for a much larger conflict, Yathara added ominously. The observation sent a shiver through the assembled counselors. If humans were treating the current war as merely the opening phase of a longer struggle, their planning horizon and strategic thinking might be far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Recommendations? Vorthak asked, though he was beginning to suspect that conventional military solutions might be inadequate. We need to escalate, Daxon said firmly. Deploy the full Council battle fleet. Overwhelming force has always been our most effective tool for containing aggressive species. The full fleet represents over 2,000 ships, Councillor Mexali observed. Deploying such force against a single species would leave the rest of the galaxy defenseless against other threats. What other threats? Daxon demanded. Humans represent the greatest challenge to Council authority in 8 centuries. If we don't crush them now, while they're still confined to a relatively small region of space, they could become unstoppable. Vorthak considered the options, none of which seemed appealing. Total military commitment might defeat humanity, but it would also demonstrate to every other species in the galaxy that the Council's technological superiority was no longer absolute. The political consequences could be catastrophic. Before we commit to total war, he said slowly, I want one final attempt at diplomatic resolution. Perhaps we can offer them something they want more than independence. High Counselor, Yathara interjected, our intelligence suggests humans have very specific desires that may be incompatible with Council membership. Such as, they appear to value individual autonomy above collective benefit, technological innovation above stability, and competitive conflict above peaceful cooperation. In essence, everything the Council was designed to prevent. The description painted a picture of a species that was fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization as it currently existed. The Council had spent 8 centuries building a galaxy-wide civilization based on cooperation, shared technology, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. Humans seem to represent the antithesis of those values. Perhaps, suggested Councillor Pethara in her whispering voice, the question is not how to defeat humanity, but whether defeating them is the correct objective. The chamber fell silent. The elderly seer rarely offered direct opinions, making her words carry particular weight. Explain, Vorthak commanded. Consider what we have observed of human capabilities. Rapid technological advancement, unprecedented adaptability, military innovations that exceed our theoretical models, and expansion patterns that suggest strategic thinking beyond our current understanding. These are not the characteristics of a species to be conquered. They are the characteristics of a species to be recruited. Recruited for what? The galaxy contains threats that the Council has never faced because our expansion has always been gradual and careful. But consider what lies beyond our current borders. The galactic core regions that we've never explored because of gravitational hazards. The dark matter constructs that appear in deep space with unknown origins. The quantum anomalies that suggest intelligence operating on scales we cannot comprehend. Pethara manipulated the display to show the galaxy beyond Council space, vast regions that remained unexplored despite centuries of expansion. Humanity represents capabilities we lack, the ability to rapidly adapt to new challenges, to innovate under pressure, and to explore regions that we consider too dangerous for conventional exploration. Perhaps instead of destroying them, we should be asking what they could help us discover. The suggestion was radical beyond anything the Council had ever considered. In 8 centuries of expansion, they had never encountered a species powerful enough to be considered a true partner rather than a subject. The very idea challenged the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. "You're suggesting alliance rather than conquest?" Vorthak asked. "I'm suggesting survival," Pethara replied. "If humanity can achieve such rapid development in isolation, what might they accomplish with access to our accumulated knowledge? And perhaps more importantly, what might we accomplish with access to their innovation?" Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency lights bathed the Council chambers in red as urgent transmissions flooded in from across the galaxy. "High Counselor," a technician called out, fear evident in his voice, "we're receiving reports of massive human fleet movements. They appear to be converging on the Nexus sector." Vorthak's blood ran cold. The Nexus sector contained the Council's primary shipyards, their most important research facilities, and the administrative center of galactic civilization. If humans could threaten the sector directly, they were far more capable than even the most pessimistic assessments had suggested. "How many ships?" "Unknown, sir. Our sensors are detecting. Well, it's impossible." "What's impossible?" "The readings suggest over 10,000 human vessels moving toward Nexus Prime. But that's more ships than we calculated they could possibly build." The display updated to show the terrifying reality. Space around the galaxy's capital was filling with human ships of configurations that defied classification. Some appeared to be massive city ships carrying entire populations. Others looked like mobile factories, apparently constructing new vessels even as they traveled. Most disturbing were the vessels that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, flickering in and out of reality as they moved. "They're not just bringing their fleet," Yathara whispered, her tentacles writhing with shock. "They're bringing their entire civilization." Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Terra Invictus Asterisk, watching the capital world of galactic civilization grow larger on her screens. Around her, the greatest fleet in human history moved in perfect coordination, 10,000 ships representing every innovation, every breakthrough, and every sacrifice that had brought humanity to this moment. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "Council fleet is moving to intercept. We're detecting massive energy buildups from their defensive platforms." "Expected," Chen replied calmly. "Begin deployment of the special packages." Across the human fleet, cargo bays opened to release clouds of what appeared to be metallic dust. The particles spread rapidly through space, seeming to disappear from sensors almost immediately after release. "Nanite deployment complete," reported her science officer. "Infiltration protocols are active." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been their ability to think in ways their enemies couldn't predict. While the Council had spent months trying to match human military technology, humanity had been developing something far more subtle and devastating. The nanites were humanity's answer to technological superiority. Microscopic machines designed to infiltrate and analyze any technology they encountered, learning its principles and weaknesses before transmitting that knowledge back to human engineers. In essence, humanity had weaponized their greatest strength, the ability to learn and adapt. "Council flagship is hailing us," reported her communications officer. "Put them through." High Counselor Vorthak appeared on screen, his massive frame somehow diminished by the desperate situation he faced. "Admiral Chen, Your fleet's presence at Nexus Prime constitutes an act of war against galactic civilization itself. High Counselor, Chen replied formally, humanity's presence here constitutes an answer to the war you declared when you demanded our surrender. We're here to discuss terms. Terms? Admiral, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This system contains the combined military might of 1,247 civilizations. You cannot possibly hope to. High Counselor, Chen interrupted, in the past 6 months, humanity has learned everything we need to know about galactic civilization. Your technologies, your strategies, your weaknesses. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to offer you the same choice you offered us. Which is, join us or face the consequences of isolation. The transmission crackled with interference as Vorthak's shock translated through alien communications equipment. Join you? Admiral, humanity is a single species among thousands. Humanity is a species that has spent the last 6 months proving that numbers and age don't determine capability, Chen replied. We've analyzed your civilization extensively, High Counselor. You've built an impressive society based on stability and cooperation. But you've forgotten how to grow, how to change, how to face real challenges. And you believe you can teach us? I believe we can save you, Chen said simply. Our deep space exploration has detected threats approaching this galaxy that your current capabilities cannot handle. Artificial intelligences from the galactic core that make your best computers look like simple calculators. Energy beings that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Entire civilizations that have transcended physical existence but retained hostile intent toward matter-based life. Chen manipulated her display to show long-range sensor data that made the Council's own threat assessments look primitive. In approximately 50 standard years, the first of these entities will reach Council space. You can face them with your current technology and lose, or you can accept humanity's partnership and possibly survive. Vorthak studied the data, his expression showing the growing comprehension of someone finally understanding the true scope of the universe beyond their borders. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? A new kind of galactic civilization, one that values innovation over stability, growth over comfort, and the courage to face the unknown over the safety of the familiar. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy, High Counselor. We want to explore it, defend it, and push it to become something greater than it has ever been. And if we refuse? Chen's expression hardened. Then humanity will continue to expand, and you'll find yourselves increasingly isolated in a galaxy that's moving beyond your ability to control or understand. The choice is yours, but time is limited. As the transmission ended, Chen looked out at the stars beyond the Council's capital world, knowing that whatever happened in the next few hours would determine the future of galactic civilization. Behind her, 10,000 human ships waited for the answer that would either integrate them into galactic society or force them to build a new one from scratch. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to learn whether the age of Council dominance was ending or evolving into something unprecedented in the history of the stars. Either way, humanity had proven that they were no longer myths or legends. They were the future, whether the galaxy was ready for them or not.